Greetings, fellow Bellwrights, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of a new Let's Play tutorial series covering Bellwright. If you would like to skip the game's overview or the intro cinematic, please use YouTube chapters. Welcome everybody to the May Miniseries Marathon playing Bellwright. Bellwright is a game where you establish and build settlements to defend and liberate towns in a medieval region controlled by a corrupt feudal lord. Recruit people to your cause to help with farming, cooking, building, research, harvesting, smithing, and industry as you build up your forces and control a small army to topple the tyrant. As usual, this will air on YouTube, and I'll be playing as a mix of Let's Play and tutorial, showcasing the game mechanics and explaining the little-known secrets, so spoilers abound. I'll be focusing on role-playing rather than min-maxing or exploiting game mechanics to make the game easier. I might explain those game mechanics in min-maxing, but I'm not going to be using them because it makes the game a bit too easy. So, it also means that I will be focusing on successful and happy settlements and outfitting a small army rather than being a Robin Hood doing it all myself. So let's get going. I'm going to create a character. I'm going to name him Yoda after, well, this little guy. And we'll look a little gruff. That works for me. I am ready to start the game, and I'm going to be having all of the tutorials turned on so that you can read them, and I'll read them out loud. And I'm going to be reading a lot of the game lore as well. Maybe not all of it, but at least some of it to give you an idea of the story. But as it pertains to my own experience of the game, I've already beaten it. So I'm fairly knowledgeable about it. But with that said, I do have the no spoilers tags on. So if you know what's coming, don't spoil it. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Isn't it funny how one small decision can have consequences that ripple through history? Or are we victims of a predetermined path? Was it chosen for you the day you visited your favorite woods on your 10th birthday? Was it destiny that the royal family were hunting there at the same time? From a tree on high, you watched as Prince Voldar and Princess Osen laughed, talked, and tracked wild animals without a care in the world. And you watched in helpless horror as a stray arrow bolted through the trees, hitting the prince in the chest like a lightning strike. Just like that, the prince was dead. And when the princess found you standing over her brother's dead body, it felt as though the gods were playing a cruel trick on you all. In the panic and confusion, you ran from the scene as fast as your legs would carry you. Fueled by rage and grief, the king demanded the head of any child who fit your description. Fearing for your life, your father asked a friend to bring you far away. Away from the king's wrath. In the middle of the night, you were taken from your home and brought away on horseback. In tears, you called out to your mother, but it was too late. Your old life was over. For years, you hid from the royal family, your resentment growing. You heard stories of your homeland, the rise and fall of a rebellion, the death of the king, and the reign of the evil Queen Osen. But on the eve of your 20th birthday, your guardian, the man who smuggled you out of Carvinia and kept you safe all these years, was brutally killed by a mysterious assassin. As he died in your arms, his hand clutched a coin with a strange sigil emblazoned upon it, a clue. Now, you have returned to your homeland for answers. Through choice or through fate, vengeance would be yours. But how will you fare in a land you no longer recognize.
The lowlands are the poorest of the 5 regions, and one of the oldest, its occupants relying mainly on agriculture for their livelihood. Due to the scourge, the people are barely producing enough to sell, let alone to keep for themselves. The current controlling Lord Ashbourne is cruel and likes to raise the already high taxes above what the Queen orders to give himself a generous cut. It was once a beautiful, flourishing place. Now, years of hardship are starting to show throughout the villages, some more than others. Here is the world map. There are multiple villages in the world map and bandit camps. And this is an old bell tower. Yeah, I could try to raise the volume up a bit. It's hard to get it just right. We're fighting to save these innocents, but it's getting harder by the day. Who could have known that the butcher, with that grim name, is someone who's got a soft spot for kids? Together, we're a makeshift family in this mess. But there's talk of a rat amongst us. Someone leaking our next moves, maybe even leading the king's dogs to our door. Can't trust anyone these days. And then there's my own kid, always looking at me like they know something's up. Makes my skin crawl. I'm in this to protect them, but how do you shield your own from a storm like this? Every move we make feels like a gamble, but we're in too deep now to turn back. 10 years ago, tragedy struck. So this was the intro cinematic. When Prince Voldar was killed by a stray arrow while hunting with his sister, Princess Osen, who pointed the blame at me. Oh, lovely. I am the caretaker of this bell tower, entrusted with its maintenance and protection. My duty has been to ensure that the bell atop this tower serves its purpose to warn the people of the northern descent from neighboring villages of impending danger. For years I've stood watch over this land from the heights of this tower. It has been my responsibility to keep the bell in working order, ready to ring out its warning at the first sign of trouble. But now, as I pen these words, the tower lies in ruins around me, a testament to the passage of time and the neglect of our once vigilant community. I write this note in hopes that someone will stumble upon it and learn from our mistakes. Our failure to maintain this bell tower has left us vulnerable to the dangers that now threaten to engulf us. I can only pray that whoever finds this note will take up the mantle of responsibility and restore this tower to its former glory. May this bell tower once again serve as a beacon of warning, guiding the people of the lowlands through the storms that lie ahead. So the current task that we have here is to talk to Dobron Yorkland, the Elder of Frandir, which is just up ahead. I'm also going to eat a cranberry. So very quickly, I'm going to talk about the UI. On the top left, we have gold and renown. Renown is kind of like reputation. And you spend it by recruiting people and the like. You have 3 foods that are currently active. Very similar to, let's say, well, quite a lot of other games, in fact. And then, in your inventory, you have 2 belt slots and a back slot. You've got a coin pouch that doesn't exist. There is no such thing. A quiver and a backpack slot. A back slot quick slots for, bandages and the like, and then armor. You can craft a few simple items from your own inventory, and then there's attributes. So there's strength, which gives you a damage bonus, HP and stamina, agility, which is movement speed, acceleration, and attack speed, one-handed, two-handed shields, archery. Those are pretty straightforward. Harvesting, which is like mining and picking flowers and the like. Farming, which is yields from farming. Hunting, yields from hunting. Cooking, which is speed and sometimes bonus food from cooking. And crafting, which is craft speed. Depending on the foods that you eat, you get an experience gain. So I'm getting 50% extra experience gain from the apple and the cranberries. And you can see those bonuses in the top left.
Keeping them fed and watered.
Up here. On the bottom right, you have the minimap. You've also got the reputation for the region that you're in. So right now I'm in Rhadamant, which is currently occupied by brigands. I'm a stranger. It is in the northern descent, and that little... Okay, I'll get back to that in a second. Health and injuries. Sleeping restores your HP fully. When you or your companions lose a battle, they respawn but become injured for a certain amount of time. When they lose again before healing, they die forever. Injuries apply various negative effects. So if the player dies, it's a bit different than the NPCs, but you do want to take care of your NPCs because if they're injured and they get downed again, they're kind of dead. Alright. Then the other one is the Northern Descent. That's the region I'm in. And then the green diamond there is sort of like the difficulty of the region. From my own personal experience, the difficulty of the region is kind of subjective. That's also true of the bandit camps. You have like green, red, yellow, but sometimes green camps are harder to clear than red ones. It really depends on the gear they're wearing. Heavily depends on the gear, because some of the bandits are relatively naked. Some of the bandits are like full knights clad in armor. Alright, so let's talk to the Elder.
I think we need to talk, Traveler. You're a new face around here, and new faces showing up rarely ends well for this village. I have a duty to my village first and foremost. I need to know who you are and why you came here.
I mean, you no harm. I came to the lowlands looking for some answers.
Looking for answers, huh? In a perfect world, I could give you all the information you need and you could be on your way. But speaking openly can be a death sentence these days. As long as you're asking questions, you're putting us in danger.
Do I have your permission to stay in the village, for now at least?
No, but you have my permission to build a shelter on the outskirts of the village. Come back once you're set up, and maybe you can earn your keep.
I'll do just that, and I plan to earn your trust one way or another. So, current goal is to build a personal shack for myself. Build your first shack. To do so, press B to open the constructions menu and then select shack and place it on the ground. Each construction requires resources to build it. Building a shack shouldn't be a problem for you, but later on, hired villagers will help you with more complex constructions. And boy, can I not stress enough, yes, don't build everything manually, you'll go crazy. You cannot place buildings too close to existing villages. Find a good spot, close to all sorts of resources. It's your first big decision and will affect the logistics and strategy. So I will show you where I think is a good initial spot, but not where I plan on permanently settling. So the first thing we need to do is to collect enough resources for a simple axe, which is 6 wood, 2 crude stone, and none of the resources when you're inside a village can be utilized by the player. So I cannot collect stone or wood within the region of this town. I have to leave.
We're peasants, there's no time to lose.
So here are the brigands that are controlled by Lord Ashbourne, that are kind of the bandit police of this town, more or less. So I'm heading southbound into the Sun Steep Valley, and right about now, I should be outside of the region. There we go. Outside of the region of Rhadamant, meaning I can collect resources. And this is actually a pretty good place, roughly around here maybe, a pretty good place for initial home. And I'll talk about the strategy and logistics of picking a good place as time goes on and as it becomes more relevant. So because we don't have any tools to speak of, we're going to need to collect stone from the ground and sticks from the ground. Or saplings. So I'm going to harvest some sticks and deadwood and stones. And we need 6 wood and 2 stones. So really small saplings. These aren't small saplings, but really small saplings, some of them can be collected by hand. But I do find it easiest to just find sticks laying about. But here's some saplings. So now that I have the materials I need, I can just click and hold a simple axe to craft. And stick that in my quick slot. And now I can cut down trees and cut down larger things. Now, having played before, I don't really need to surveil the land all that much to be able to pick a good starting spot, as I'm quite familiar with the game, but really anywhere around Rhadamant, which is your starting town that you're going to interact with, is going to be a good spot. The resources that you're going to need early on, so let's talk about them. Trees do not regrow, but there is plenty of timber, as you can see. There's every tree that you see, more or less, can be cut down. You're going to want a lot of wood for your starting area. You're going to want access to flax, which can mostly be found in the open valleys out here. You're going to want access to river reeds. And river reeds only grow near the water, but you don't need constant access to them, but they're useful to make simple arrows. You're also going to want access to copper, primarily, but tin doesn't hurt either. So finding a spot that has all of those things is going to be very useful. But I am going to stick my personal shack right here next to the road. There's another reason to build very close to the road, and it is that the player eventually gets the ability to build quick travel points, fast travel spots, but only near roads. So if you live near a road, you can travel to your points of interest very quickly. Now, as you can see in the top right, we have 6 flax and 10 wood required for a personal shack, and it doesn't cost any renown, which is good. It's also going to tell me if the resources in the area are good or okay, as you can see, but that's like very, very subjective measure. I'm going to plop it right here. Let's collect the flax first, and then the wood. Can you dodge roll, like in Dark Souls? No. You can block. And the combat is very similar to maybe Mountain Blade Bannerlord, or Mountain Blade Warband. Very similar to that in concept. So young trees yield wood. The non-young trees, which would be like these, yield logs, which are different. You can cut logs into wood, but the inverse isn't true. You can't cut wood into logs. And those are the materials I require. And you can either put the materials down directly into the construction project, or stockpile them adjacent to the construction project. So you can see all of the flax and wood that I've collected, and then we'll start building. Tier 1 buildings can be built by hand like this. Tier 2 buildings take considerably longer, considerably more resources on average, and require construction hammers. And I heavily encourage you to use villagers to build anything beyond tier 1. There we go. Here's a personal shack. So the benefits of the personal shack allows me to sleep when it's near nighttime. It has a private chest, which won't be interacted with by villagers, meaning anything you put in there is going to be kept for you, the player. And yeah, I guess that's about it. If you want to rename things, you can hit B, as in Bravo. And up here, you have a disassemble and a rename. So I can just go, hey, I'm going to call this Yoda's Shack. And now it's Yoda's Shack rather than Private Shack. And this is really helpful specifically when you have stockpiles and the like, where, like, let's say one stockpile you want river reeds and wood for arrows, and another stockpile you want hemp and flax for weaving. You can have a weavery stockpile and a arrow stockpile, things like that. All right, the game wants me to wait until tomorrow to check on Dobrin Yorkland, but instead what I want to do is build more Tier 1 facilities. So if we take a look, here's all of the current Tier 1 stuff I have access to. A housing tent allows me to house other people. This housing tent can accommodate up to 2. An outhouse allows you to get rid of items that aren't needed anymore. Not very necessary. A campfire allows you to cook, which is pretty nice early on. A simple workbench allows you to craft some simple tools. And a camp chest allows you to store some stuff. And a research desk for research. It is important to note that the player themselves cannot research. Research has to be done by NPCs. I'm going to build a simple workbench. And I'm just going to put the simple workbench right next to my initial shack. Right there. So the simple workbench needs 3 stone, 3 flax, 5 wood. And I also just picked up flax seed. And there is quite a lot of farming that you can do later on in the game. And yes, my little shack looks like a beaver lodge. That won't stay true for very long. You do end up getting pretty elaborate and elegant buildings and bases. I also just picked up berries, and I'm going to eat them. It's really nice to have 3 consumed foods at any time. Foods will add to your max health, add to your max stamina, add to your health regain rate and stamina regain rate. And then some of the foods will increase your productivity stats, meaning that you craft faster, or your combat stats, which means that you, like, move faster, attack faster, that kind of thing. And I'm down to 2 foods. Scorpio, thanks for the, all the gifted subs. And Nerone and Weirlig and, Emily, thank you for the resubbing. Alright, let's go get those stone. So as you can see, of the tools that I can make, I have a primitive club if I just want to, like, bash things. And I'm going to make one. But actually, the simple axe is a pretty decent weapon. So I'm just going to hold off. Alright, I have the crude stone now for the simple workbench. One of the advantages of the simple workbench is when you have villagers, it will allow them to repair their own tools automatically. So here, it allows you and your settlers to craft all of the armors, tools, weapons, and refined materials which will be critical for the success of your settlement. It's not exactly true, but you can manage it queuing up tasks for workers, but I don't have any workers just yet. Or I can craft things for myself, and it's the same menu that I have access to. The next thing I want to get is probably a campfire or a research desk. I'm going to go with a campfire. I'm going to put the campfire just outside of my personal shack. Right there. And I'm going to need 5 wood, 3 stone. I already have 4 of the 5 wood. So these rocks require a mining tool, which I don't have access to, so I just still have to pick up stone from the ground. It's also worth noting that eventually, almost all resource collection can be delegated to your villagers, or basically all of it. Meaning that you eventually get to a point where a lot of the day-to-day tasks are managed by your villagers, allowing you to do quests and to do conquest and things like that. So campfire is going to allow me to cook fish, cook large pieces of raw meat, roast mushrooms, meat, and small meat, which is all good sources of food. Now, getting fish, the only way to obtain it, well, there's a few different ways to obtain it, but basically there is no fishing in the game. So you get fish by killing bandits or by buying it from merchants or trading with villages. It's not something you can obtain yourself. Now, it would be good for me to find a source of mushrooms nearby. There are mushroom patches that you can find out in the forests, and they're a pretty handy food source. And they remain a pretty handy food source throughout the entire game, because it's very easy to forage for mushrooms and smoke them or roast them, or even let them spoil for fertilizer. But here's a mushroom patch over here. And the mushrooms in the mushroom patch will regrow. The things that don't replenish would be like trees or ores that you find on the ground. So if I find like tin ore or copper ore laying on the ground, those won't replenish. But crops do. So flax that I pick, hemp that I pick, mushrooms that I pick, all that stuff I can get back. And we can add mushrooms to the 4, I honestly want to just call them marshmallow sticks. And let's get those roasted. Putting 1 wood in the fire pit is going to be enough to roast these mushrooms. Alright, the next thing I'd like is the research desk, and that's going to require 2 logs, 5 flax, and 10 wood. And I'm going to put the research desk right next to my personal shack. Keep everything nice and close to one another for convenience. So here's a full-on tree, and I need 2 logs for the research desk. Some trees, when you cut them down, you'll get 1 log. Some trees, you will have to then cut the tree that has been downed into multiple logs. The taller the tree, the more logs you'll get from it. I do find that with hand axes, rather than wood cutting axes that you get later on, hand axes are sometimes difficult to cut down larger trees. And there are 2 types of trees. There are regular trees and hardwood trees. There aren't a lot of hardwood trees where I am now, but my axe wouldn't be good enough to cut down a hardwood tree. There we go. We have the base of the desk, so I need 5 flax, 5 wood. And also these roasted marshmallows just finished, and you can hear it when it sizzles. Generally speaking, cooked food is more nourishing than raw food. Actually, that's pretty much entirely true throughout the entire game. So if you are trying to have higher HP and higher stamina and not need to eat as often, cook your food. Can you burn food? Yes. Burnt food or spoiled food, because food also spoils. These blue bars here is the spoiling meter. Spoiled food can be used to make fertilizer. So if you have a lot of spoiled food, hold on to it, because it's very easy to make a compost bin for fertilizer. And fertilizer is actually something that sells pretty well, or rather, trades pretty well. There isn't a lot of stuff that you can... There's not a lot of raw resources that you can sell to towns, but there's a lot of stuff that you can trade, but that comes much later on. You can also eat raw. So here's the difference. A roasted mushroom is 25 health and 12 stamina, and a raw one is 16 health and 14 stamina. But it at least gives me yet another variety. So here is the research desk, and that unlocks the research tree, and the research tree is rather large, and I'll show it to you in just a second. So here is the entire tree. It's expansive. Tier 1 is everything below this horizontal line. So I'll be able to research a weaver's loom, or a mud collector and a shovel, or a mixing bucket, or a farm and hoe, or a campfire with a cauldron, etc., etc. When you build the village hall, you get access to tier 2, and when you build the town hall, you get access to your tier 3. So this is the entire tree, and later on, some of the research options are locked behind a specific class, and that is a very important concept to understand. So eventually, there are special classes like blacksmith, weaver, farmer, carpenter, woodsman, healer, innkeeper, laborer, engineer, and those specific villagers need to be recruited to unlock their respective technology. Does resources carry across settlements? It does not. But you can deliver resources from one settlement to another at midnight to automate things like that. So if you, for instance, have an outpost that gathers copper, you can have copper automatically deliver to your outposts once a day. Research does carry over across settlements. Research is essentially what your player knows how to do. Sorry, I misread. So, the more powerful your settlement becomes, the more likely it is to attract raiding parties, invest into guards and better gear to fight them back. Build outposts. Don't limit yourself to just one settlement. You may need resources that are found in other corners of the region, and you can find all the useful information in the tab overview screen. So let's go through that screen now. So here is the settlement. The buildings that are currently in the settlement, and the priority that they're given. This priority affects how NPCs react with it. So, for instance, if I want NPCs to research more than work the simple workbench or campfire, I can set that to anything below 5. 1 being the most priority and 9 being the least. 0 is don't interact with it at all. So I can say for the campfire, don't interact with it at all if I don't want NPCs to be using the campfire. Population, it's just literally me. Storages, I have none. And deliveries, and I can't show you deliveries until I have an outpost. We also have raid threat up here, which is when I get attacked, how big the forces that attack me will be. A tiny little spoiler, the forces that attack your own settlement are very easy to defeat compared to the forces that attack villages. I'll just say that much. Is the map static? It is, yes. Alright, the next thing I want to build is a camp chest, so that I have some storage, and I'll probably build a few of these. I don't want to overinvest in this initial settlement, because I don't intend to live here forever, but let's go get 12 wood, or 11 wood and 6 flax. And I'm not really collecting any resources that I'm not immediately using, because it's very easy to fill your storage up. And I don't need a whole bunch of, like, let's say, stone that I don't intend to immediately use until I need it, right? Now here's a hardwood, this tree, which I won't be able to cut down until I get a tier 2 axe. Huh. 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 Alright, that's enough for the 2 chests. And it is almost midnight. Now the player doesn't need to sleep. NPCs sleep, for the most part. Not all NPCs, but most NPCs will sleep. The player doesn't technically need to sleep, but you do gain a little bit of stamina bonus from sleeping. So there is a small benefit to sleep, if that's something you want to do. So here's the camp chests. These slots aren't really slots. It's just a volume of stuff. So it can store up to 50 volume. Things like logs take more volume than like a single flax flower. And you gain access to better storage later on. Alright. Other things that I can build, a housing tent. And yeah, let's build a housing tent now. So I'm gonna put a housing tent, let's say, across the campfire from me. and that requires 2 logs. So this time I will cut down a larger tree, which requires subsequent chopping. So here, as you can see, there's chop points. So this tree has 3 different logs. And it is sometimes hard to hit the hitbox of these trees, which is why the hand axe that I currently have can be tricky to cut these down, because depending on how they fall down, and it could be hard to cut, especially if it's a skinny tree. And any log I'm not using, I can store for later. You can see logs take up a considerable amount of space in your inventory, whereas like flax seeds and flax was like 1 unit apiece. So 6 flax and 9 wood. And let's put that other log away. Items in the world that are dropped will persist for like 10-ish minutes before disappearing, for the most part. So if you're cutting down trees and you have leftover, pick them up. If you want to save yourself the future effort of having to cut down more stuff. So I need 5 more flax. Now, apart from bandits, there are a lot of other NPCs and hostels that you can find in the forest. So, for instance, this is an herbalist's hut. You can buy food from them. You can buy seeds from them. You can sell some subset of items to them. And this specific herbalist is, without too many spoilers, heavily involved in a lot of quests. But there's a lot of other herbalists out there. Also, it looks like there's a boar across the street. Boars are kind of difficult to kill.
Welcome. What brings you to my humble herbal shop?
So, potato seeds, flax seeds, garlic seeds, turnips, so on and so forth. I can also buy mushroom stews, which is really good for stamina. Generally speaking, vegetable-based food is good for your stamina, and meat-based food is good for your health regen. And then I can also see what I can sell to him. So, for instance, he'll buy mushrooms and garlic if I had stuff like that. And it will leave a permanent point of interest on the map where he is, so you can find your way back. I would also advise when you unlock the travel sign, which is one of the first things you should work towards unlocking. Putting travel signs next to every NPC is not an unwise thing to do. Just make sure that you don't spend all of your renown, because renown is also used to recruit villagers. So if you spend all your renown on travel signs, you might regret it. But for the most part, travel signs, I put them everywhere. In my own personal playthrough, I had, I don't know, like 50 or something travel signs all over the countryside. So I'm going to leave this unfinished intentionally and put the rest of my stuff away. Holding left alt will transfer all of the stack, as provided there's room, and then holding shift allows you to transfer some of the stack. As just hotkeys. You can also specify for NPCs what should be put places. So for instance, if this camp chest, I want it to be a drop box. I'll call it drop box. where when I have a bunch of junk, I can dump it in the box. The villagers will then take items out of the drop box and sort them depending on where they're allowed to be. So you can have food rations in one, and you can have seeds in another, and sort and organize in that way. But for now, I don't want a drop box. I don't have enough stuff to need a dedicated drop box. All right, let's go ahead and sleep, and then we'll talk to Dobrin in the morning. Thank you for tuning in to Bellwright, which originally streamed live on Twitch May 25th. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, viewers that turned out to the Marathon's live stream, and also viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow Bellwrights.